And we are back for another video, and by popular demand, because Anil, you are a popular man. We've got Anil back. Anil, first of all, how are you doing?
Pretty good. I'd say. I don't know about you, but where is the British summertime? For those of you that are in Britain, we hear the rest of Europe is absolutely baking. It's 17 degrees here. It feels more like autumn, and it's a bit tragic because normally start of the season's about having those long summer days, enjoy it, get to the start of the season, and instead it's been raining all day. So to be honest with you, that has played with my mood a little bit. But first game of the season's coming right up, so I guess it's time to get excited.
It is. And again, Anil has put loads of efforts. Again, appreciate it. And make sure you leave your comments down below. Anil's got again a whole presentation ready around Leicester City as well. So yeah, thank you. But feel free to take it away because you've got some great stuff coming up. I don't want to talk too much.
No worries. Well, yeah, it's almost turning us into our own match of the day. So let's have some fun. So beyond the 90.
We're not on match of the day, so this is it.
Exactly. Exactly. We're on a championship show. What's happening today? So I thought we'll cover three things today. Let's start with the big one. So we played against Liverpool last week. Very interesting game, good and bad. We will have a look at some close stuff as to what happened and why. Then we're going to talk about the Cov scum themselves, the M42 derby. It's been a while. I have to say, I'm personally going to this game. I don't know if you are. I'm actually quite excited because
I am. I'll
there's
see
always
you down there.
Yeah, with the fans.
M69
there's always
as well. You said M42.
Oh, of course. Oh my God, you're gonna kill me in a second. But especially with the picture that I've chosen, and then season predictions of what do we think is going to happen based on it. And I think that's going to be quite hard to say because a lot of things are shaping up. But without any further ado, let's get into it. Let's talk about Leicester against Liverpool. So we played in Singapore. Obviously, makes perfect sense to do that 1 week before the season starts, and had a friendly with them. Didn't go too well. What I would say is, I think before this game even started, if I asked you on paper, a Jurgen Klopp Liverpool team is going to play against the Championship team, and the Championship team have got a new manager who's been in charge for 4 weeks, and the Championship team is going to play out from the back for 90 minutes. What do you think the score would be of that match? I don't want to use any excuses, but I do want to paraphrase it. If I was to tell you that, what do you think the score would be?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It would just be stupid. It would be absolutely stupid. And that's the thing. I think even when you looked at that lineup, they had Salah, Nunez, and Jota as their front three. Not Thiago. At the back, well, you've got it up there.
Well, we'll come to that. We'll come to that. But what I was going to say is that, I think we were briefly discussing this the last time I was on, and we did say how, look, it's a friendly. We shouldn't expect too much from the performance or even the result. But I do remember that Norwich went to Liverpool on the first day of the season when they got promoted and they got battered 5-0. And they did something pretty similar, which is they came out of a very attacking lineup. They were there to play football and they got schooled pretty badly. And so, to be honest with you, I was expecting something of the same. I was actually quite interested to see with the team lineup what Maresca would do in order to counter that. So I think even just looking at the lineup, there were some interesting things already. Firstly, of the front three, it was the first time that Daka started. I think that makes sense. Liverpool play a high line. If a team's going to play a high line, do you know it's a good tactic? Is to have someone with pace who can get in behind on the counter attack. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think before the sort of biggest thing that we noticed is that Ricardo got moved to left back and Castagna dropped to right back with Albrighton coming in as right winger. And just want to show that. So this is how we kind of lined up. Here's Ricardo actually in the left back position there that I've highlighted him here. But what he was doing when we were on the ball, we kept the same system and he was playing the double pivot. But this time round, he was on the opposite side of Winks. So when we were playing against Northampton, him and Winks would be swapped over. This time he's on the left-hand side. So why did he do that? And you've kind of mentioned it. This is, I think, the reason both him and Castagna were in the team. And I think this is kind of interesting. So I feel like this shows us we do have a very competent manager. I think Maresca's chosen a lineup where he wanted to keep playing the same stuff that we played before. That is having the three at the back when we're in possession, but have that 4-3-3 shape when we're out of possession, and also be respectful of the fact that Liverpool have one of the most elite attacking lineups in world football. In Mo Salah, they have a Premier League legend. He's got to be one of the best players we've seen in our lifetime. So putting Ricardo on him does make a certain amount of sense. I do have to say, I think Salah took him to the cleaners. It won't be the first or last time a player gets taken to the cleaners by Mo Salah, but that was kind of thing. I don't think Castagna did too great a job on Jota either. Jota's another player who in the past has absolutely terrorized us. Remember that infamous game under Puel where they won 4-3, absolutely crazy time. So I think that's why we kind of put them in the team. This is what I want to say. So here you can see a lot of clips of this, but here's Ricardo. He was trying to do the job on Salah. He was following him pretty tightly, trying to restrict what he could do and stop him from doing things. Unfortunately, it didn't really work too well, and we'll kind of explain why. I think what's interesting about this game is it showed us both strengths and weaknesses of the team, and that's why I really wanted to look at this. And I think that's good. If you look at the opposition that we've played this pre-season, most of the teams we played up to now have been pretty weak, right? We didn't get to play Spurs. So Peterborough in the league below us, that was the first game just for fitness. Luton, we didn't see the game. Northampton, again, lower league. And then Port, which was just some, team thrown together, or we have no idea really what their quality is or how they even play. So it's very hard to kind of make an assumption. Liverpool might not have had the best season last year, but they still finished fifth, and they are a top team. And Jurgen Klopp is one of the best managers in Europe. So what I do want to say, though, is there was some lovely stuff that we played. And I don't know about you, but the first, I would say 20 minutes, I was so impressed with what I saw. And I think it's really worth talking about this stuff. So even though we've got to call it out and say we got battered, we've got to be honest, we got battered, right? There was a lot going on here, which was great. So let's watch this move again. This is actually a pretty simple move. Now, remember I talked about Daka being the man over the top. So we're just kind of playing it here. You can see the double pivots working well. Liverpool trying to close this down. Comes the Vestergaard. Vestergaard, first time, just lumps it, basically, goes long. But it works, right? And Daka was there. Now, it wasn't the greatest ball. I'll be honest with you, I don't think Liverpool defended this too well. But Daka manages to win it, flicks it on, goes to Casey McAteer, who I found very impressive, I've got to say. This guy, I think, is going to play a part this season because he's an intelligent guy. Look at the pass he plays there. This is like maresca. It's outside of his foot. But, takes it on the run. He's reading the play. Look at this, grabs it. Good first touch. Look at that. That is nice. And Diddy, this is a bit harsh. I think some people say he should have scored. If you look at other keeper gets it very quickly. I would say that I feel like an elite player probably would score here, but I'm talking elite. I'm talking like, maybe De Bruyne would have the sense of mind to dink it around the keeper. Maddison too. I can't really blame him. He worked the keeper. It's early on. This was like first time we got there, but this was nice. So, and I remember a lot of people were saying, Wilfred De Bruyne, what's happening? This attacking mid. Now we're going to go for another one. And this is Maresca ball. This is Mads Hermansen. I believe that's how you say his name, not Hermansen. Mm-hmm. And you can see the difference he makes. There has not been a Leicester keeper in my lifetime that could do the sort of stuff he's doing here. Very comfortable, plays a great ball there. Doyle to Cade, Dewsbury Hall. Look at that for a ball. Fantastic. Through to Ndidi. Ndidi, maybe the wrong choice. He probably should have pulled that back to Daka, who's kind of given him the eyes afterwards. But this whole move, look again, under pressure, one of the most elite pressing front threes in world football. No fear. That's Winks back to Hermansen. Again, this is like the first time these guys have played together even. Nice thing. Callum Doyle, another new signing, first time onto our engine. But, takes one touch. Oh, I love that. That's my position in football as well, to play that kind of pass. And about this time, I'm pretty sure a lot of us were getting super duper excited. Like, this is great. This is a top team, right? Their front three is not new. They've played together. They know how to press. They know how to play. And we have shown, even if it's only for a small period in the game, that it can work. And that's what gives me conviction. That's why I'm excited for this season, right? I think it is going to be rough at times, but we have shown that it can work already, and we will only get better at it. Some other things that were interesting. Offensive set pieces. Been a while since we did this, but look, we managed to find the big stick at the back post there in Vestergaard. Half decent chance. He can win a header after all, although as we'll see in the future, he isn't that great at all headers. But here, decent opportunity. And at this point in time, I believe we had something like 6 corners. And here's another great move that we made. So this was to McAteer. And again, we're going to see some really good play from the team. So use of the double pivot. Vestergaard, again, is trying to draw the player on. This time he does play it wide, which is good. That's something we stopped doing for some reason later on in the match. First time ball there from Castagna playing it long. A big part of our system is trying to find the opposite winger who's going to be isolated one-on-one. So if you remember what I spoke about Northampton, we like to compress play down one side of the field and leave just one man on the other side. And that means we've always got this opportunity to do a diagonal. This is something that Manchester City do a lot. It's why some of their players like Mahrez in the past, Sane, were really prolific. And it's a way that's good for beating deep blocks. So they go, first time ball. He's on this bike, gets on it. He's actually got 2 men, beats him, and look at that. If he'd have laid it off, can you see Dewsbury Hall there is absolutely going spare. This should have been 2-0 to Leicester at this point, right? So a really good opportunity. I want to show some more examples of diagonal switching. So just to show the tactic again, here we are drawing players onto us. Look at this from Winks, really like that. Despite being under pressure from 3 players, he's got that sense of mind to play out. This time it's Doyle. Doyle looks for the ball. Not the best executed, but look, you can see that Andy Robertson there is on this bike. So again, it's showing this is like going to be a real feature of our play. Draw their team into one side, then play the fast switch onto the other one. And I think the really encouraging thing is, as the time is speaking, you know, well, when this match was played, our wing options were not the best, right? We've just signed Steffi Mavididi, and there are rumors that we're about to sign the Crystal Palace player on loan, Raksaiki, who was a player of the year for Charlton last year. Whether or not he joins, I don't know. I will guarantee you that more wingers will join before the end of the window, though. And yeah, just to show you the dominance, at this point in the game, we'd had 5 corners to Liverpool 0. We were actually really, really hammering them. And at this point in time, I'm pretty sure I even texted to you, but I was convinced. I was all aboard the HMS Piss the League ship, looking forward to what was going to happen. It was happening. Brendan in shambles. Unfortunately, Brendan drowning, but unfortunately, it wasn't just Brendan drowning. Because if I'm being honest, this is an artist's rendition of what happened for the rest of the game, which is the boat kind of did a Titanic and it fell apart. What happened and why? Let's look into that. So I think the big thing that I noticed, and this happened pretty early, like I think a lot of people say that the first half an hour is good, but I think you have to be honest and say that's not really true. I would say up until about minute 23 or 24, the warning signs are already there. I saw Klopp on the sidelines and he was getting really angry. And what he basically told his team is like, pull up your socks, right? You haven't got control of the game. At this point in the game, Leicester actually had 68% possession as well. So it wasn't just that we were making chances, is that Liverpool frankly couldn't get close to us. That's again what gives me like great hope that this season can be good. And Klopp told them, look, slow the game down, get hold of the ball, control it. I know we like to hate Brendan for his sideways football, but the thing is sometimes sideways football is relevant, and it's relevant to kill the pace in the game. So if the opponent has just done something and they're building up a head of steam, it's one of the best things you can do. Takes the tactical foul, fall over, get some injuries, break up the momentum and flow, and try and restore it so you've got control. So here, okay, not the greatest opportunity, but it was a warning sign for what was to happen. This is just before the goal, and this is what happens. Now we start giving away the ball carelessly. They're getting the ball. They're just playing it around, knocking it. We're not really chasing it. And now look at the possession. 78% in the last 5 minutes there for Liverpool. They're completely taking control of the game at this point in time. And unfortunately, that is then what led to the mistake. So now we're going to look at turnovers. And this was really the big issue, what happened. So we start getting the ball and we're just careless with it. Like here, it looks okay. But as we're going to see in a moment, I've got the whole move. I wanted to play it through so we can, really get some understanding. So we've got Vestergaard here on the ball. There, you see, Ricardo doesn't quite well. This time he gets away with it, but we get away with it again. Oh, my co-worker just messaging me while I took this video. Absolute classic. So yeah, patient stuff again. Seems like everything's all under control, but you got to be really careful, because if you're not careful, here's Castagna on the ball. Oh, and boom. Ball is given away. And this was a warning shot. This was not a goal, but this was the point, right? Is that we were giving the ball away carelessly, and it started to happen more and more. And I do have to say that I think this is like a little bit of a worry for me, because it wasn't so much that we lost the game, but that the capitulation, right? That is the Leicester City of last season. That's what happened. Now we're going to start seeing the mistakes. Look at this. It's just way too easy. Forced up a turnover. I think the first goal, have I got the first goal here? No, I have somewhere. We'll come to it in a moment. But first goal, I feel like Manson as well. He was quite poor, weak wrists in terms of palming it out. But again, it's just here. Saz control. Ricardo made some mistakes as well. And it was a story of the game, this mental capitulation. But what Liverpool really did is they took control of the game. And then what they did is they won the second ball. They forced us in here again. Look, poor ball given out. Get the ball, a poor pass gives away possession. And they're really fast at this vertical transition as well. So they've got it. They can go here. And yeah, here I want to really call out Vestergaard, because this is extremely poor we're about to see. So ball gets played out to Salah. Lots of time on the ball. Plays across. Vestergaard doesn't even jump, gets beaten by the header behind him by Diego Jota, who's probably at least a foot smaller, who heads it in. And this is 3 goals in 10 minutes. And at that point, the boat has collapsed. It's GG's. It's over, right? So that was a shame. So what can we really take from this game? I think overall, the first 20 minutes was super encouraging. Maresca has said many times it's about the idea. It's not about the result, right? Maybe not even the performance per se. The fact that we've shown we can do it so early without having all of our players in is extremely encouraging. I think if we've got to be critical, we've got to say we didn't score when we were on top. We should have scored at least one. That really changed the flow of the game. And I think as well, it's got to concern him that after we conceded one, we conceded three in such quick time. What we should have done instead is we should have done what Liverpool did and tried to get control of the game and use that to take change of the pace, and then we could have got some get into halftime 1 or 2-0 down. Then we can go on. So that's Liverpool. So now let's move on to the big derby with the wrong motorway that I put here. So we're going to be playing Coventry. It's the first time that we've played them in a while, and Coventry are a very interesting team. So didn't see much of them play last season. I'll be honest with you. I think I did see one of their playoff semi-finals, which was interesting. They've got an ex-Man United striker as their manager, Mark Robbins, who's extremely, well thought of. Coventry have made their way up from League Two, would you believe, in recent seasons, and they were one match away from getting to the Premier League. So I think they deserve a lot of credit, especially even though we hate them a lot, is the fact that they have, had a lot of issues, such as not even owning their own stadium and stuff like that. And so I think this is a real banana skin that we're about to see. Their setup's kind of interesting, right? So they tend to play wing back, so they have 3 at the back here, 2 men wide. But what they do, which is interesting, is when they defend, they have like a 5-4-1 formation. And that does worry me a bit, right? Because that's like as deep a block as you can get. And it's going to be really difficult to maneuver your way around. And given that we're a team that hasn't got that much fluency yet, we've got a lot of new players, we're not in our stride, I think we might find it tough. Something I want to point out as well is that not only do they play this, but this is going to surprise you about teams in the Championship, is they are starting to play some pretty modern stuff. And this is an actual box midfield that they use. So they use like a double pivot, but they also use 2 10s as well. And using this, that means their idea is pretty similar. They want to make the guy an overloaded midfield, find the extra man, and use it to kind of play distance. Their difference is their box is higher up the field and not so based at the back, which is what we do. Our box would be positioned slightly further down. And this is for a reason. They are almost, I would say, like the Championship version of the Man City formation in a way, in the sense that they quite often will play long. So their strategy sometimes is they can play into midfield where they're going to have an extra man, and they're not looking to win the first ball, but they're looking to win the second ball, right? And use their kind of dominance. And if this isn't worrying you, it should, because in our midfield right now, we're going to be using Harry Winks and Ricardo Pereira, who are not particularly physically gifted. They're not tall. I do actually think the reason why we've seen Wilfred and Didi play at number 8, the more that I think about it, is that I think Maresca has got this game in his mind. And I think he realizes that he needs to have one player in there at least who can compete with that to give us a chance of winning those balls, so they don't just get it for free, because we want to get control of the game first. So that's something to watch out for. Now, we'll see if that is or isn't true. I've just said that, and probably Dennis Pratt ends up starting a number on Sunday. But I've got a suspicion that's the way that we're going to do it. I do also want to say, though, that they don't just play long, right? They also can play some good stuff. So here's Cov actually playing out from the back. And again, this is the sort of thing that the last time we were in the Championship, no team would do this. No team would have done it. Not even us. When we were in the Championship, it was all very direct. It was attritional. But things have moved on. And there are teams that use modern tactics. And it's not just the teams that got relegated. Borough, Coventry, Ipswich, there are a few more. There are teams that will try to play quite sophisticated football. What's even more impressive is they don't just use a static formation. They often move. So from their shape, this is how they get forward. And the guy that I really want to kind of draw your attention to is number 10, which is Gus Harmer. And he's their star player. He's a player, actually, that I know a lot of Leicester fans were hoping we'd get. You can actually see that here they got number 4 in Doyle. So that's someone that we have stolen off them, right? Because Callum Doyle was playing for them last year. You can see he's playing a very similar system. You can see why he was identified. Back 3, transitional positions, can play that kind of hybrid role. So yeah, let's talk about the danger man. So Gustavo Harmer, one of the best players in the Championship last year. He was linked with a lot of Premier League clubs. I actually wouldn't be surprised if he does end up in the Premier League by the end of the transfer window. But we're going to have to deal with him when he plays. I've got here some of his play and some of his goals. And here we can see this is Coventry playing against Luton. This is, I think, like one of their best performances of the season. It's gone to Gyökeres. Gyökeres lays it off. This is Harmer. Boom. Great slotted finish with foot. This is a guy that got over 10 goals and assists. Real kind of box-to-box player. They try and play in a way to take advantage of him. I think the one thing that is going to work in our favour is that Victor Gyökeres, who is their 17 there, is no longer with them. And that is huge. He was such a good player that Sporting Lisbon bought him for 24 million euro, and he's going to be playing definitely in a Europa League. He might even be playing in the Champions League. I don't know. But for a championship player to make that kind of a jump is insane. I can't think of the last time that happened. Swedish international as well. And he was like at the forefront of their plans. So the fact that he's not going to be there, that makes me happy. Here's another goal that the team scored. It's actually Zach Steffen in goal there for Middlesbrough. Actually seeing this footage makes me kind of glad that maybe we didn't get him. Although I did say to you, I do feel that Hermansen is a keeper that is going to make mistakes. I felt like he did make a mistake against the Liverpool team. I don't have that against him. I think that's the nature that we've gone for. These type of keepers, he basically was a player that started outfield and got moved into goal. That's why he's so good with his feet. That's the price that you pay. I think you can see in that opportunity that I showed you earlier against Liverpool what he brings to the team, but also what he might pose against you. But again, this is Harmer and what he's capable of. We're going to have to really watch him. I'll be interested to see if we do a man-to-man job on him. It looks like he'll probably be going directly against KDH. I think KDH has got the engine to deal with him, but we've got to watch out for this guy as a slippery customer. What I do just want to highlight, though, is the way that they play by moving that kind of quite narrow midfield is they too have gaps in wide areas, as you can see here. So I've had to go on Baggy's TV of all sites to find this footage, but here's a game that they played here. And you can see that the way that their formation snaps in, they, with just a few passes, can find this kind of inside channel run quite often down the wide areas. And we've just signed Steffi Mavadidi, and this could be an area that he could exploit. Obviously, we've got to find him. It's not guaranteed that we will, but that could be the area that Maresca targets. That's maybe how the way it's going to go. So there you go. That's some analysis on Liverpool. That's some analysis on Coventry. Over to you. And I guess how do you think the season's going to go? We can talk about anything you want to.
Brilliant. Yeah, I just want to say, Anil, thank you so much for that. It's been really, again, phenomenal analysis there. We're going to have Coventry fan hopefully on tomorrow, where we'll do the post. We're going to do some interviews with him. So be interested to try and show him some of those clips as well, because they're really, really good clips. I think you mentioned about the capitulation. It's something that I mentioned as well. And obviously playing Vestergaard, for me, you mentioned obviously in that clip, it was him and Castagna. I'm with you. I think Castagna wasn't great in that game, to be honest. Seems like his head's already gone. Which for me is, it's like, again, if you don't want to be here, don't. But who have we really got in that position? But for me, James Justin would have been that next person. But obviously, he's not the case. He was injured or he wasn't available for that game. For me, the question I want to go to is, why do you think he's playing Vestergaard over Suter? Both of them are not similar profiles, but Suter's just been left out, and I don't know exactly why, because there were so many mistakes. Suter was available on the bench. I don't understand why Vestergaard was playing ahead of him.
Well, I heard today that at the open day, Vestergaard was also heavily involved, so I'd expect to see him start. I think people are quite unfair on Yannick Vestergaard. He is a guy that has over 60 caps for Denmark, right? You don't get to that number by being a complete idiot. He also played in Germany, I believe it was for Mönchengladbach. That's a pretty decent mid-table team. I think he was someone that struggled with space in behind, and especially on the fast transition is where he's going to be weak. And you could say, won't that happen to us? Perhaps. But I expect that most of the games that we play are going to be more like the first 20 minutes I showed you against Liverpool rather than the last 70. And what that means is probably 65% plus possession. So it's not really going to matter so much about the pace in behind. Well, there might be on the turnover, but for the most part, he's going to be on the ball a lot. His passing is quite decent. I do have to say that in that game, I do think he did also make some mistakes of his passing too. But I did also show you the clip where he found Daka. It wasn't the greatest pass, but he could do it. I do know that if you look at his stats before we signed him, his progressive passing is really up there in terms of the percentiles. If you remember Harry Maguire when he played for us as well, there were times when we used to joke and call him like Harry Beckenbauer and Harry Baresi and things like this. Is he often would actually go past Wilfred and Didi, and then Didi would cover for him and he would drive forward because he was better passing. It's because I believe Harry also started as a midfielder in his career. So I think we've gone for the progressive passing. Now, Harry Suter is also quite good at that as well. At championship level, he was proven. I've seen him do it for Australia. But look, Enzo Maresca, this is a guy who's literally just come off a season working with the treble winners. I think if there's someone who recognizes a good player, I would be quite, complimentary of him. There's obviously something, or the way that he plays, that he prefers it. Maybe we'll be wrong and he'll change it out. I do agree with you. Look, if you're the club, you'd be feel, why aren't we playing this player that we've just signed, who everyone thinks is better, rather than one we didn't? But it's a new manager, new system, new tactics. He doesn't care about the players. He's only met them for the first time. Everyone starts with a clean slate, and he's decided to give them a try. I will be honest, it does concern me. I think as well, the way that Coventry plays, they like to have these like real kind of bruiser strikers. Yes, Gyökeres has left, but they signed Ellis Sims. I don't think he's the best on the ball, but he is a unit. Like, he'd be the sort of person I would hate to mark in real football. I think he'll give you a torrid time. And Vestergaard is one of those interesting players that, despite his physical size, it's almost like, you know, sometimes when you're at school, there's like that tall kid, but actually they're a bit of a pushover. And it's actually sometimes the short, angry kid that's the one you got to watch out for, because he's been picked on his whole life and he's ready to blow. Whereas people don't dare challenge the top guy, and that's why they sometimes get pushed about a little bit. Peter Crouch, to a certain degree, even though I think he had a much better attitude. So, like, people always used to say Peter Crouch was amazing with his feet for such a tall man, and actually quite bad heading, because he probably didn't have to head. He didn't have to jump most of the time, sort of thing, right? He was more used to
head
football.
down, didn't he? If you remember,
well, and that's harder.
Trinidad and Tobago, he had to head down in order to get in the ball in the goal.
I mean, that can be more difficult to generate the power and stuff like that. So it's not straightforward. So we'll see how it goes. I'll be surprised if Suter starts. I'll say that much. I think of all these things. Look, right now, does the manager know what his best team is? Probably not. I mean, we're probably gonna. I will be shocked if we haven't signed at least one more player by the time that game is started. I think we might even sign two, because what you're finding is, I don't know if you noticed, but this week a lot of the championship clubs have started signing players, and that's because the season is starting. So I think what it is that kind of like playing poker with the other teams. It's like they want 2 million, we want to get them for 1 million. But the season's about to start. Okay, we paid a 2, or we pay 1.8. Well, we got to get him in now, right? Now's the time to stop messing around. We got to get serious. So I think, you know, that's going to make it even harder to see what the lineup is. But yeah, that's why I think he's been selected for his passing. I think offensive set pieces. And it seems like, look, let's be honest, it'd be Connor Cody if Connor Cody was fit. But the fact that the club hasn't said anything, the press conference is tomorrow. I'm worried about what they're going to say about Connor Cody. I've got a feeling we're not going to see him till October. Yeah,
I'm really hoping so. I'm really hoping he's back soon, but I'm hoping it's weeks, not months. But it is a foot injury, and potentially that is not something that we want. And something that I just want to come back to as well is something that you mentioned. What was really good, especially about the bit getting on more the positive side in the first 24 minutes. There was that 1-2s, a lot of them with the midfield and back, and then breaking out with the long balls. I don't know about the long balls as much, but specifically that's something that I saw De Zerbi do a lot of last year when I was watching Brighton. And it was going from the midfield, trying to break the press. And you were saying Liverpool's press is fantastic. If we could deal with that for, again, about 20 minutes, we can deal with other teams. And I think, is that kind of I don't know if he came from the same brand of football, but the kind of the passing, the 1-2s, I was really impressive to keep Liverpool at bay. Yes, it was for 20 minutes, but it's great to see it because it's not something we saw even last season.
I don't think you can find a better team than Liverpool in Europe in terms of running a press. Like, their system is a bit different. I would say them and Atalanta are the two that, maybe Napoli, are the ones that stand out to me. As you know, Jurgen Klopp would call it rock and roll. You know, they take a lot more chances. I think Klopp has changed it recently. He's decided to go for more kind of possession, which is why they signed Thiago, and now they've signed Alexis McAllister, who I think had a decent game for them overall. But, you know, the thing I think we've got to be wary of, though, is that in the Championship, I don't think many teams are going to dare to play that higher pressing game against us. If I'm being honest, I think someone will try it and they'll get absolutely battered. That would be my take. I just think they will, because the thing is that can work to a degree, but when you're going against players who there's just a golfing class, that's an extremely dangerous. That's literally what happened in that game. We've tried to play a style where the other style, you know, is a counter to yours if they're better players, right? So that I think you know, the high pressing games, if we're going to see them, Leeds, they might play that way against us. They would if they had their old manager. Their new manager maybe not so much. And I think Southampton might try it as well.
Farker plays that. I think Farker plays that. If you remember the Man City game,
Norwich,
when they came in the Premier League 3-2, was it?
They beat them,
didn't they? Toe in Man City, and they beat them.
Well, you've just made me full of optimism now, haven't you? Just by mentioning that fact. But yeah, look, I think they will try it, because under Jesse Marsch and Bielsa, they literally signed people to play that kind of murder ball style. So they will definitely try it for sure. And that's where we could get them, right? I don't think too many of the other teams will. So I think it's going to be more about the block. Like when you talk about Brighton, yeah, their tactic, it's funny because when you see Brighton play, it looks like all their attacks are counter attacks. But then you look at the possession and Brighton had 70% possession. And you're like, what? How is that possible? We're Leicester. When we won the league, we won it with 30% possession. That's how you play counter attack. You let them have the ball and then you just do super fast passing vertically through to Jamie Vardy. But what they're doing is that they are luring they're saying rope-a-dope like Muhammad Ali, right? You come to me, and when you come to you, oh, you've left a space in. And that's why against Liverpool, those chances, we were making them because they were committing 4 and 5 players up front. So if you play out of their press, that's players that are out of the game. And that's where all that space is. And again, if you look at all those attacks, maybe I didn't do too good way of describing it, but every time there wasn't just one player that the player could have cut back to. There was at least 2, if not 3. So McAteer, he could have played it to Dewsbury Hall. He could have played it square to Daka. He could have shot himself. He could have probably gone to the opposite wing, who was probably seen out of shot. Same with Ndidi. So, yeah, the system really is quite aggressive and it's going to allow us to exploit the spaces. It'll be interesting to see, like I say, against Coventry, are they going to go to be daring and go for it? Or are they going to be a bit more conservative and sit back? I think, unfortunately, if I gave you that hypothetical at the start of the show, saying if a championship team played the Liverpool team. So let me give you another hypothetical. If a team who were just relegated and lower morale had just come back from a Far East tour and were heavily jet lagged, and they were up against one of the best teams in the championship last season, who only narrowly missed out by 1 game promotion, were up against their local rivals, how do you think that game would go?
Yeah, that's the thing. You're right, because again, it could just takes a little bit of crowd to turn, and you're right. But
listen, I'm not saying they will win. I'm not saying they'll win.
You make a good point. You're making a good point because this that was one of the questions I was going to put back to you, kind of throwing it back. We've not got this preseason right. We needed it's. I won't say it's complete shambles, but I would say we've not give. Out of all, I mentioned this in my post match. I went, it's out of all the people's fault it's probably the board at the moment, then the players, then the manager. I'm blaming the least. It's not his fault.
He has zero fault. He has zero fault. The manager. I am going to use the word shambles, and the reason I would say that is look, some things are beyond their control, like the fixture getting rained off. It is kind of predictable given you're playing in monsoon season. They could have chosen a stadium that had a roof, but okay, that can be a freak occurrence that maybe that happens. But it's not that. It's that when I saw a lot of the footage, I think I would almost go as far as saying shameful, is it was like a celebration. It was like, look how good Leicester City is. Look at all the trophies we've won. But there's nothing to be proud of. This team got relegated in one. I would say our relegation was embarrassing. The last time we got relegated in 2004, that was a team that no one predicted to stay up, right? It had loads of signings. We had the whole La Manga saga, if you remember that, and it wasn't a particularly good team. So whilst it hurt as well, it's like you couldn't really say it. But this was a team that, frankly, if we'd have pulled our socks up, if we'd have made changes earlier, should never have been in doubt of doing it. There's nothing to be proud of, right? So, even do you remember when we had the Great Escape? That team could easily have gone down. But if they'd have gone down, you'd have said the same thing. You'd have said, you know what? Every single game, it felt like we were in it. We just didn't have the quality. But lads gave it everything. We were trying. Even Chelsea was saying, oh, this is one of the better teams we've played. Why are they down the bottom? They literally said that to us that season. So, yeah, I do think it's kind of shambolic in that sense. And if we start, we both said, like, I heard on one of your previous videos, you saying that you were prepared for the first couple of games to be rough. And I guess that's the warning that I want to give everyone. That's how I see it, right? I think, unfortunately, it depends. You get a few wins and confidence can go through the roof. But I guess with my kind of analysis of Coventry, I think you're looking at a team that's good defensively, that's going to sit in the block, that's got physical players. And I can see that being hard to get through. I can see them winning the physical duel when they play long. It doesn't bode well. The only thing I will say is thank God we're playing at home. If we were playing this fixture away, if I'm being honest, I would have them down as favourites at this stage of the season. As it goes, I think it could go either way. But I think if we are talking about this, or on your channel you're talking about post-match and it's not the best result, it wouldn't surprise me. But look, I think we've got to give the manager, players some time. They're going to need at least 10 to 20 games, I think, to really make any judgment on them.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And again, we're still very early days. It doesn't feel like preseason's finished, even though the game's around the corner. And one player I wanted to bring it onto, obviously, since we last spoke, Mavididi is officially signed as well. Speaking of physicality, he's a similar kind of player. Given that number 10s we saw from the training today, do you think he's going to offer that? Because what role do you think he'll play? Because I think he'll play alongside that main striker in front of that. But do you think he could potentially? Is he going to be an out-and-out winger? Is he going to be a 10? Or is he going to try and move into the midfield and allow players to run off him as well?
Yeah, I think actually it's something I have to apologize for. Is a lot of the time I've referred to our system as having wingers, but actually what Pep has done is he's moved away from your typical wingers like Mahrez, Sane, and Sterling, and he's gone more for this hybrid position like Jack Grealish and Bernardo Silva. And what's really good about these players is these players can play as a 7, an 11, an 8, or a 10, if that makes sense. So they can play centrally behind the striker. They can play out wide as a winger. They could play as a number 8 attacking midfielder and everything in between. If you look at Mavididi, what's really interesting is he started as a striker, but he's actually played completely across the whole front three. He is predominantly right-footed, but I've seen him score with his left. It doesn't look like it's the worst left foot you've ever seen in the world as well. So I think this is quite an exciting signing. As someone who's really good on stats on the Foxes Talk forum, actually, let me give him a shout out, called Finnegan. He was giving us some of the stats and XG and stuff like that. And if you look at his profile, he's got really, really good defensive stats. He works hard. He makes lots of blocks and interceptions, great for running a high press. But what I really like is he's also got really good take-ons and kind of progressive carries, they call it. So Harvey Barnes, that I'm a really big fan of Harvey Barnes. Great to see like an academy lad make his way into the team and is going to end up in the Champions League. Credit to him. But the one thing that he never had is he could not really beat a man. Harvey Barnes, how he beat a man is he just ran straight at him, right, and beat him for pace, like he tried and clip it around them. Or what he was really there for was Mr. 1-2. I don't know if you know this. Did you know the player who scored the most 1-2s in the last 3 years in the Premier League is Harvey Barnes? That's an interesting stat for you that someone pointed out to me. Yeah. Because he would use to play it into the midfielder who would return it to him, and he's got the pace and he would shoot. It's a direct player. And I think Harvey Barnes is a good player for like, he makes the most of his attributes that he's got. Now, what I think is good about Mavididi is based on what we've seen from him is he is going to be able to beat a man. He's rapid and he's skillful. And I think the price basically,
well.
Yeah. Look, we won't know until we see him play. But I would say that in this system, they're going to go for people that they need to be fast, they need to be skillful, because they need to beat someone in that one-on-one. So remember when I showed you their McAteer, when he got to the area and it was one-on-one? That's what you want your player there. You're trying to set them up for that, being one-on-one, and therefore you want them to be able to beat that player one-on-one. And then if they beat that player one-on-one, what are they going to have? They're going to have either a shot or a cutback situation. So you're hoping that they can finish and or pick that pass. So that's how I expect we'll see him being used. If I'm being honest, I think he will play on the left-hand side. I think it will be more, but I do know that you used in one of your videos like the graphic, and they used the graphic to kind of show Marcel Madividua as a kind of secondary striker. But I believe that graphic was a lie, in my opinion. I think they don't really understand the system, and I've got the video evidence to prove it. I think it is more of the classical 3-2-4-1. I say classical, it got invented last season, so it's not that classical. And I think he'll be on the other side. And I think we'll sign someone
It made the most sense for him. That's why I put it up, because it was,
Yeah.
I don't think they settled with a 5 because Harry Winks was never playing that high. But that position was like, right, he's going to take that position in the team, because I've been trying to set up formations and stuff and it just doesn't work. So I was like, in terms of like, oh, we're playing this, but then there's certain players out wide and it doesn't really work. So using that, you're right. I think you're right, but that's the formation that for me showed where he would be worse. Not out wide as much, but more inside.
Yeah. They cut in. They cut in. Yeah. That's what they're looking for. And like I say, so just today, Mike McGrath, also from the Telegraph, he's not quite as good as John Percy, but he's basically the second one there. And he's talking about a guy called Raksaiki from Crystal Palace. He spent last season on loan at Charlton. He was their player of the season. 15 goals, 10 assists, their player of the season there. They say he's the most exciting prospect they've had since Wilfried Zaha. And I guess in his development, the jump from League One to Premier League is too much. So they want to send him out to the Championship. If only there was a Championship team that needed a winger who is good with their left foot and had an availability. So I could definitely see something like that happening. If not him, as I say, I would guarantee that we do sign someone to play that. And what those players need in terms of attributes is they need to be fast, they need to be skillful, They need to be hardworking and be able to beat a man. If they can do those things, there's lots of people that fit that profile, by the way. You know, they can be even better. Like Mo Salah fits that profile, by the way, but I don't think we'll be signing him anytime soon. Maybe his younger brother or something like that. And I think they'll transform the team. But look, we don't really know too much about him, but giving him the 10 is quite the statement, isn't it? He's come from a higher league to drop down one. I think that Mavididi and Winks, they've been signed as players to get us out of this division. That's what you're paying for. Because no other team in the division, other than maybe Southampton and Leeds, could get a player like that. Like, we've literally spent more on one player than probably 20 out of the 24 teams in this division. So if you're paying that much, you're expecting that player to do some serious damage. My suspicion is he will do it. And I've got a feeling that he will be a favourite. I think for me, it'd be one of those that more, if he gets to the Premier League, he might not be quite good enough. But you know what? We can worry about that if and when we get there, you know.
So another player that I think that will be, again, you mentioned Rakstaki again. The rumours are there at the moment for him to be on loan. I think he would be, again, a good player from what we've seen. And again, the other way around, a step down, kind of a step up. I think another player as well that's been linked today, I've heard that Casady, a player we spoke about, he's quite interested in the move. It's all up to Chelsea now. So when he comes into the team, what do you think he will play as? Because Ricardo takes that alongside Winks. Do you think he replaces Winks? Do you think he plays up alongside, like he plays the Wilfred Ndidi position?
Yeah,
I can't see just place him in the team.
He will replace Wilfred Ndidi, 100% sure of it. That guy I'm very interested in because, like I said, I don't know if you watched any of the Under-20 World Cup, but he looked seriously good. I mean, seriously good. I have to say it's quite because Chelsea right now have got this situation where they don't have many midfielders. They obviously don't think it. Look, to be fair, if they're genuine about maybe even trying to win the Premier League, which might sound ridiculous, but they have spent a lot of money. You know, they probably want Champions League. To be fair, he's probably not quite at that level. I think it'd be an outrageous signing if we got him. I mean, I do have to say the one thing I said last time is I don't really want people that only come here because there was sort of no other option, and it might be the case that is the thing. But I haven't seen him play. So what's his skill set? He's like a box-to-box all-round midfielder. He's good at tackling. He's good at building the play. He's good at passing. But the thing that he's really stands out is the boy can finish. He is fantastic at arriving in the box late. His decision-making is great. So with Wilfred Ndidi, people are like laughing at him and we're jokingly calling him Wilfred De Bruyne and things like this. There are some good elements of his play and there are some bad elements of his play. The good elements of his play is he's making the runs, his physicality, he's getting up and down. That should not be shied away from about how good that is, right? You know, it's like even the best strikers in the world. I've seen Erling Haaland miss a lot of chances. He also scored 60 goals or something last season. It's because you've got to keep getting yourself into the right position at the right time and never give up, right? And the way that Ndidi's playing is he will be very good if he continues doing that because like his expected values, I think, will be very high there. What he's doing badly are two things. One, when he's arriving in the box at the final moment, his decision-making isn't right. Now, the funny thing is, it's not so much about the pass being difficult because quite often that pass is just like a 6-yard cutback, right? But it's just playing that pass and playing it at the right time. And actually, you know, even for ourselves when we play football, if you're making a pass when you've just ran onto it after 20 yards of hard sprinting, you're tired. It can kind of take it out from there. This is where I feel like Casady is elite in this regard, right? For someone of his age, he just has that composure. And the second thing, I kind of should have touched upon this with the Liverpool analysis, but there were some goals where it got played to Ndidi and he lost the ball. And he lost the ball when he was under pressure. And that was a big falling down for us. So when Brendan Rodgers first took over, people forget how good we were in that first sort of 6 months under Brendan Rodgers, especially at the start of the 2019 season. So we went for this kind of 4-1-4-1 formation with Wilfred Ndidi as the sole pivot, as a defensive destroyer. And he was so good at doing that. He was getting the ball, winning the ball back and giving Tielemans and Maddison time on the ball. But what happened is other teams looked at the team and they decided that they needed to hunt him down. And if you could stop that ball to Ndidi, you could break the Leicester flow. And teams caught onto this and it became a weakness rather than a strength for the team. And that's actually why the season afterwards, Brendan changed the formation and we went more to a double pivot and Tielemans dropped back a little bit with Maddison becoming more forward. So that was to give us like a secondary option to get out. So why am I bringing this up? The point is, Ndidi, when he receives the ball, he's not the best under pressure. he is not a press-resistant midfielder. I think in the formation that we play, he will get away with it a lot more because it's not often that the person who's going to be chasing you down is Alexis McAllister, 60 million signing, by the way, or Dominic Shobalasi. I think he cost 70 million or something like that. You know, you won't be playing with players at that level. So for the most part, he'll probably get away with it. But I feel that someone like Casadei, he is much more of an offensive midfielder by his very nature. Now, let's look at the weaknesses. What we will miss by having a player like that in the team is he's not going to win the aerial duels that Wilfred Ndidi will. Wilfred Ndidi, if you look at his percentiles, I think he's in the top 5% for that because he's so tall and he's got the octopus legs that his interceptions, tackles, and aerial clearances are fantastic. Right, simply because he's got the size. So if we play a different player, we're not going to get that. And we are playing in a very physical league. You've got to remember that, right? But I feel like the finesse, the technique on the ball, that's what this new signing would bring. If we don't get him, I think it's pretty clear that someone like that will come in. It's kind of a shame that we can't get Harmer from Coventry, to be honest with you, because I actually think he would be really ideal in that position too, and would be suited for that Championship football too. So we'll get a good look at him there. So yeah, let's see. But yeah, I still think that like we shouldn't, I still want to get on board the Ndidi train. And I don't know about you, but he's such a nice guy. I would like to see a bit of a redemption arc, if I'm being honest. It would be nice to have good memories of him rather than negative ones when he leaves.
I would. And also considering there was quite a few players that down tools last season. In Ndidi's, there was a few players that came out and they were the players that came out and said they were the most sorry tended to be the people that were leaving. Tillemans, Evans, Maddison, Barnes, all have gone now. So Ndidi's come on and he's actually come. He's working hard as well. Compared to like even Castagna, doesn't look like he really wants to be here. That for me is really frustrating. But apparently Enzo admires him quite highly. But I don't think we can get into that position where I've been in a business where like you've got somebody negative and it spreads it does spread to the whole team if somebody's just like I don't want to be here. And just by them, even if you enjoy your role, it naturally seeps into people. I just don't want that to happen again.
Yeah, fully agree. Yeah, there's a big danger of that. I think he'll go. I think he's still a good enough player that someone will take him. It might be one of those last days of the window type things, but we can do. But look, he's a Belgian international. Again, if you're in a championship, the way that you cheat your way out of it is have players that are ridiculously too good for that division that shouldn't be anywhere near there. And I would argue that someone like that is maybe even Dennis Pratt to some degree, if they were fully motivated, would be serious acquisitions for any team in that league. But I think he'll go.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's just who replace it with. It probably is James Justin. I mean, some of the players you mentioned, Pratt again is apparently quite liked by Enzo as well. Another thing as well, just to mention, coming back right to the beginning, you mentioned about there's for me, there was two things that Enzo had come in to address, and he addressed in his first press conference. One of the things was, I think, the fitness. He goes, the fitness is not good enough for the players. We need to change that up. And he's getting them playing football from the first day, which we've seen has improved. Then there has been a few players out for whatever reasons as well. Second one, mentality. We're seeing in that second half, or after you're saying 24 minutes, it's slipping back to where it was. And my concern is, as you were saying, if it's not fixed now, this can lead to, oh, well, we know where we are now. And we can, and they are saying the right things about saying we're going to go, our plan is to get back into the Premier League, which is what we want to hear as fans and what the ownership expects. But the mentality, I think, if it gets to a few games that are going bad, I think the fans might turn in the same way that they turned on Arteta when it wasn't working. But the players were still behind it.
People are short-termists, especially these days in the era of social media. I do have to say that it scares me. The reason it scares me is because it's not as straightforward as saying, oh, it's the same players from last year, because it's not, right? Who is involved in that capitulation? A guy making his debut, Hermansen. Callum Doyle has played 3 games for the club. Vestergaard has basically not played for Leicester City before, right? Who else was next? Who else was in that team? Harry Winks, new to the club, right? So, and this is part of the defensive unit. So, okay, Castagna, definitely he was part of the team, so you could say he could be part of the issue. Ricardo didn't really come until later in the season, so perhaps you could do that. It is concerning. Let's be honest with you, that's why we signed Connor Cody. I do wonder if the same thing would have happened. So, like I say, this can happen to anyone. I'm sure it's happened to you playing football before. You're in a game and all of a sudden 1 or 2 going quite quickly. What do? Someone on the team's got to be the person say, just keep the ball. forget trying to score, forget trying to get back into it. You remember what Yuri did against Spurs when we just conceded for 2-2 and we ended up conceding the third one, right? That's exactly what you do not want. You need someone who's got to keep their head, right? Be mature about it and say, look, there's plenty of time left. It's a friendly game as well, by the way, right? We can work our way into it. That's what's even more scary is that was a friendly game. It's like, you know, there's not like there's anything on the line. It's not like we desperately need the 3 points or we're going to go down. We've already gone down. This is just to like test the system. So who is that player? I think the worrying thing is that player is clearly not Harry Winks. I was extremely complimentary about him. I do still want to say I think he's a very good player technically, but I do know that a lot of the Spurs fans said that he had a tendency to be like hiding away. Like sometimes when the going went rough, he was not that guy who was going to grab the team by the scruff of the neck. He's not a leader basically and sort it out. I would have to say that in my opinion, that's something that Leicester have needed for quite a while is someone in the central midfield area. If I'm being honest, my dream signing would be Cambiasso the season that purely because he might not have been the most physical, but he's someone who's been there, seen it, and got the t-shirt, right? You know, he is always going to keep his head, make sure that the team is there. I remember a lot of the games that I was at, Cambiasso was talking to Jeffrey Schlupp the entire game because Jeffrey Schlupp was like a guy who in Football Manager or FIFA has speed 99, but has like brains 1, right? He's that type of player, right? So Cambiasso was there, giving him good instructions of like when to press, when to hold back, making sure he's not deserting his position, and that experience on the pitch. And you know, that season, Jeffrey Schlupp won Player of the Year, by the way, for us. So you know, it goes to show you that it worked. So yeah, how do we deal with it? I think we need a really good leader or influential person there. I think we signed that player. That player was Connor Cody, and I think unfortunately Connor Cody. I mean, I have seen some people speculate, and it could make sense, is that maybe Cody, the reason why we haven't said anything about his injury is let's just say it was a bad one and we need to sign someone else. We don't want people to know that we need someone else and we need them desperately. Because if you think about it, the reason why we ended up with Yannick Vestergaard is we lost our best central defender and the team were desperate. And we're like, look, it doesn't matter if we pay the over the odds. It would be a mistake to sign nobody rather than sign, you know, an overpriced player. As it turned out, that wasn't true. We probably would have been better off signing nobody and keeping with Daniel Amate, who ended up being kind of pivotal that season. But what can you do? Well, what are your thoughts on the mentality? How do we solve it?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly, but it's do you know the one? Do you know the genuine way we solve it? Win games. Then people forget about it. And if you go out and win your first 3 games, mentality's back. Confidence
is that true,
thing.
though, Neil? Is that true? Because the thing is those seasons where we finished 5th, we also choked at the end of the line. And those seasons, we won a lot more games than we lost. And we still lacked it. That's why I question that. Like,
momentum,
I know you mean...
Isn't it?
Yeah, but
it was the momentum of winning it in a row. And then we lost in a row. The momentum changed. So confidence is like that.
Well, but that's, I guess, what I'm saying is that I feel that, like, some of the best players I've seen... I'll go again back to Esteban Cambiasso. That season, we lost most of our games. Most games we lost narrowly. But that was the difference. We never capitulated, right? There were some games, I remember once we played Chelsea at the Bridge, I think it was, or it might even have been our own stadium, and we played so good. We should have been like 2 or 3-0 up. Like David Nugent was missing a lot of chances, right? And then they ended up winning the game 2-0.
Score?
Maybe, yeah. I was starting to lose track of it, right? They won the game anyway. That was my point. But the thing is that it would be so easy after a game like that to feel sorry for yourself and be like, oh, you know, there's nothing we can do. We're going to get relegated. But yeah, we never, that season, I can't remember us getting pasted at all, I don't think, right? So that's the importance of that. And I actually thought that was a mistake we made even when we were riding high, that we didn't go for someone who experienced, if I'm being honest. Sometimes you do need someone who just has been there, done that. Like, I hate to say it, but for example, Brighton, they signed James Milner this season. Did you know that? Right? He's not there because he's going to play every game for them. But what a great person to have in the squad to come on to see out games. They're going to be in Europe this season. He's got that experience. You know, it can be good to have somebody like that in the team. Look, I don't even know who we could get or how. But in my opinion, to fix it, sometimes you've just got to go with those players that have it, because some players have it and some people don't. It's like you mentioned, like in business and stuff like that. Some people are leaders, some aren't. You know, you could be having a team-wide meeting. There could be some people who you always hear the whole time, and there are some people that never say anything. And it's nothing against those people, right? In some ways, sometimes you don't want too many of the loudmouths, but you definitely need some of them. So, but look, that's just my feeling. But you raised it now the last time we spoke as well. So I am curious. If you do have the elite recipe, let's give it to Rudkin so we can. I mean, probably the answer is
I
to get rid of
know.
Rudkin, if I'm being honest. But there you go.
No, he's not going anywhere. I think
No, I know he's not. Yeah.
in terms of how we play and what we're going to try and do with the team, we do. I'm with you. I think we need somebody in that midfield, but I can't name you exactly who that person is. Ideally, the younger end, again, it's not going to happen. Ward-Prowse might be it in terms of the kind of the not.
That would. Well, have you got a spare 40 million? That's how much Southampton
I
want for him.
know,
So he's not coming.
I know he's not coming, but the profile of player we need.
Yeah,
He's been there. He knows what he's doing. He'll link up nicely, but again, he'll kind of take the team and go, right, we're going to go for it. We're going to try and get onto that level because that's what's going to hold us back, in my opinion. And I think if Vardy comes back into the team, that's the leader that we need as well. There's a reason why I think Maresca said first thing we need to do is get Jamie Vardy back in the team, and you're going to be our main number 9. We're going to give you confidence, and he will spur on the team. Which you've been down the ground. You see over the years he's took on that leadership role. And come on, guys, we're going to get back into this. It's different when somebody's up the top of the pitch. And I think Connor if you've got it from both ends, it's fine. But if you've got it from one end, maybe not as much.
That's kind of my point. I also feel like even Schmeichel, he was super influential, a great captain, but you can't affect it. And as I say, the reason I very specifically mentioned midfield, they don't have to be a captain per se. But the thing about being a midfielder, especially a top class one, is to understand the state of the game, right? So I don't know if you see like Modric play. He is so elite at this. There's a reason why even at 38 years old, he can make people look like idiots. And that's because he knows when you've got to speed up the pace, when you've got to slow it down, when you've got to lure people over. He controls the game by doing that. And that's not even technical, right? That's understanding of the game. That's feeling the crowd. Like, we're away to this team. Oh, and I can start sensing that their fans are getting upset. Like, you know, they're starting to get against their team rather than for them. Oh, now we step on the gas kind of thing, right? Oh, hang on a minute. Jamie Vardy just made an amazing tackle. Now the Leicester fans are really up on it and they're smelling blood. We need to slow the game down. You know, you need someone like that. That's very difficult to get. You need experience, or you just need to have it kind of inbuilt. I'm making too much of a mountain out of a molehill, perhaps, but I think long term we need to do it. It could be a younger player, but it's not anyone got in the squad. You could hope that someone develops into it. You know, I remember like when Dewsbury Hall broke into the team, people were saying future captain. I don't see it. I don't think he's got that personality. Ricardo was made captain at the weekend, right? But we capitulated 4-0. So not really sure that's the one to go for either. Yeah, I think Cody would be the one. But, you know, if it's not for him, it's difficult to say. As I say, I think it could have been the Winks position, but Winks is not that player.
No, and we'll have to see. But yeah, again, appreciate you coming on. I'll leave your Twitter down below. But anything else to plug as well? Because again, I really appreciate you coming on and really appreciate your analysis as well.
No, just thanks for having me on. Good luck, everyone. Let's enjoy the season. Up the Foxes. I say just quickly, maybe to end, where do you think we'll finish? Because me, despite saying that, I'm going to put it out there and say I think we're going to be champions.
I'd like to think so as well. I think Southampton have a good team. I think, but just looking at, as you were mentioning, there's a lot of teams that are playing good football that are not just going to go, well, let's settle 5 men behind the ball. They're going to make it hard for us. I think we'll still finish top, but don't take it for granted. I'm not sitting there going, oh, yeah, we'll be HMS Pistol League, which it seemed like, and we got cocky because I feel like this is great if we play as a championship. And then a harsh reality came crashing down quite easily. But there's lots of caveats to that as well, both positive and negative. So that was my thought. Anyway, Anil, again, thank you so much for coming on. Again, if ever you enjoy these things and want to see Anil more, again, leave it in the comments down below. I know you've been doing it for the last time. So again, Anil, really appreciate you coming on. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We'll see everybody in the next video. So goodbye.